What's good everyone, this is John MD Mills and welcome back to my channel. I am very sorry for the lack of uploads recently. I've had a few life things going on, just trying to sort things out and get ready for the rest of the year. So a few updates regarding that. Thank you to everyone who supported my 10k. I raised a couple of £100 for orchid cancer and the time was just over an hour. It was actually nice to have a fitness regime in place for a few weeks at least to do something amazing for a very good charity. Please check them out if you haven't already. Thank you for everyone supporting the release of I Am Not My Skin Color. I wasn't nervous about putting it out. I actually thought it would piss a few people off, which it did to some degree. Got a few private messages here or there, but it led to more dialogue and more conversation, which is the main thing with these kinds of things. So not too bad, not too bad. And as you can see just over my shoulder, the book collection in this place is, well, has decreased, should I say. I've went through the painful process of downsizing my book collection, some that I keep here in London and a lot of it back home, back in Birmingham in my parents' house. And yeah, it was painful to actually sell quite a bit of my book collection here in London. But that's done now, so moving on swiftly. I'm going to try and keep this brief and just mention the key book of each month, so that's May, June and July that I've read. If you want to see all the books I've read, feel free to, friend me on Goodreads. I'll put the link in the description as per usual. And so yeah, for May it would have been In an Antique Land by Amitav Ghosh. I really do hope I said his name correctly. Just his semi-narrative, biographical, as well as touching on so many different historical things of his time as a Hindu Indian in Egypt, obviously a predominant Muslim country, and just the coming together of these different cultures, which the only thing that really bridges them together is colonialism. Egypt with its historical links with the English and the French, and obviously India with England as well. And yet when them two cultures come together, how they clash in of itself, and just then him attempting to find a common ground. It's one of them books you'll reread. I know I will reread it at some point, because it touches on so much and he does it from such a personal angle that you feel like you do need to reread it again, maybe sometime in the future. But it gains definitely an insight into somewhat the non-Western view of the Western world, as well as how they interact with each other as well. So that was a key thing for me to take out in May. June, what would June be now? Cloud Splitter, which I think is, yeah, it is. Cloud Splitter, which is just there, by Russell Banks. Russell Banks, I've heard of him but not actually read any of his books. Cloud Splitter is the first because it was the one that gripped me the most. I'm a huge fan of John Brown. He is arguably the most divisive figure in American history, and I think the guy's awesome. If I'm totally honest, he is awesome. And yeah, Russell Banks, this book is basically a fiction book from one of John Brown's relatives who actually survives all of the Kansas wars, who's old, living, and he's actually just retelling his story to someone who's actually trying to research and write a book about John Brown. So it's very fictionalized, it's very existential, and it's just the relative of John Brown basically retelling some of the stories, what he was like. You can tell Russell Banks did quite a lot of research, but you could also see the theme throughout it was clearly Russell Banks trying to, I guess, figure out for himself while he was writing how John Brown went from this patriarch, Puritan, cast off in the 19th century, something very antique even in his own time, very antique views, very old school views of the Bible, very old school views of running the family, etc., into practically what is now called a terrorist. He was a domestic terrorist, so to speak, all in the fight for abolition of slavery. And Russell Banks, you can tell through the mouthpiece, which is this fictionalized relative of John Brown, is trying to actually understand how this man, who in the book is obviously his father, actually went from being this holistic person trying to do the right thing to all of a sudden going around killing crackers in the name of freeing black people. Take that as you will. But yeah, it was a great read, very lengthy. Parts go very in depth about the existential crises of the character involved, looking back at his own father. But other than that, solid read. And what would be July? Yuval Noah Harari, Homo Deus. That has shifted my worldview a little bit. Yeah, he's looking at how technology has advanced recently, how human beings became top of the food chain, so to speak, and now the technological crisis which is coming up in front of us, how we are just giving away majority of our life and what actually makes us human to the idea of data processing, and how we can't argue with chemistry and we're just running down this wormhole, and it could end badly. He drops a few prophetic statements in there about how the 20th century, the version of healthcare was all about equality for all, so it weren't just the rich that were getting healthcare. And he's there then saying that the 21st century could easily be the century where healthcare takes a different turn, where it's all about human improvement. So, androids, cyborgs, everything that James Cameron basically tried to warn us in Terminator, come into fruition, so to speak. And it's happening bit by bit. It happens just from us no longer truly experiencing things. It's us having to tweet about it, having to write a Facebook status about it. So then all of a sudden our life experiences just become processes that have occurred online, and it just becomes data for marketers and people who are trying to learn more about us. Google knows more about us than we know about ourselves, is his argument in some point. That's what he actually puts across, that it can reach a point, they're already developing it, where you will have devices which can guide you through your life, because they can break down your chemistry, they can break down all your searches, so they can understand your line of thinking and understand where you're at, and your entire human existence becomes a complete data process. And that's mainly because if you follow the scientific positivist view, there is no such thing as a human soul. And we're basically just heading into this amalgamation of humanism, liberty, and then science, just all coming into the mix, and it's all going to explode, and yeah, humanity's going to change drastically. But that's just him. Very good read. Very, very good read, as you can tell from how much time I've dedicated to just speaking about it. Yeah. Bloody hell. But yeah, other than that, they're the key books. Go read them. I would always suggest that. Always go read them. It is a key thing to read more. But yeah, I think that's it. And that's me. That's my monthly update. Again, if you want to keep up to date, check me out on Goodreads, and you'll see absolutely everything that I'm reading. But yeah, this has been John M.D. Mills. Peace!